Malta. Malta island country located in the central Mediterranean Sea, a small but strategically important group of islands. The archipelago has through its long and turbulent history played a vital role in the struggles of a succession of powers for domination of the Mediterranean and in the interplay between emerging Europe and the older cultures of Africa and the Middle East. The island of Malta specifically played a vital strategic role in World War II as a base for the Allied powers. It was heavily bombarded by German and Italian aircraft, and by the end of the war Malta was devastated. In 1942, the island of Malta was presented with the George Cross, a British award for great gallantry, in recognition of the wartime bravery of the Maltese people. The Maltese are renowned for their warmth, hospitality, and generosity to strangers, a trait that was noted in the Acts of the Apostles, with respect to the experience of St. Paul, the apostle, who was said to have been shipwrecked off Malta in 60 C. Land. The country comprises 5 islands: Malta the largest, Gozo Camino, and the uninhabited islets of Canonic Cominato and Filvla, lying some 58 miles 93 km south of Sicily, 180 miles 290 km north of Libya, and about 180 miles 290 km east of Tunisia, at the eastern end of the constricted portion of the Mediterranean Sea separating Italy from the African coast. Plant and animal life. Malta's flora and fauna are typical of the low-lying coastal regions of the Mediterranean. Excessive exploitation of the forests for timber and the clearance of land for construction and agriculture have destroyed much of Malta's woodlands, though a few stands of holm oak remain. Aleppo pine has been successfully reintroduced. Maguas, a scrubby underbrush, is found along valleys and below escarpments, and consists of lentisk, carob, olive, bay laurel, and in some places the sandarac gum tree. Malta's national tree, sand couch, sea kale, and sea daffodils are found on Malta's few remaining coastal dunes, while golden samphire, rock samphire, and sea lavenders, several of which are endemic, are characteristic of low-lying rocky coasts. The native mammals in Malta include a subspecies of the Sicilian shrew and several types of bats. Most of the country's other mammals, including the Algerian hedgehog, Mediterranean chameleon, Etruscan shrew, rabbit, and weasel, have been introduced. Native reptiles include the Maltese wall lizard, the ocellated skink, the Moorish and the Turkish gecko, the western whip snake, and the leopard snake. The only amphibian in Malta is the painted frog, a species endemic to Sicily and Malta. Invertebrates, including insects, arachnids, and snails, are abundant. People. Malta's population is composed almost entirely of ethnic Maltese, the descendants of ancient Carthaginians and Phoenicians, as well as of Italians and other Mediterranean peoples. Attempts to form a unifying and homogenizing Maltese ethnicity can be traced back to the late 13th century. These efforts were consolidated in the nationalistic discourses of the late 19th and early 20th centuries. Aside from the Maltese population, there are small communities of British nationals, Sinhais, Palestinians, and Greeks on the islands. Since the 1990s, influxes of more transient but no less significant groups have arrived from North Africa and the Balkans, and in the early 2000s from countries of sub-Saharan Africa. Language. Maltese and English are the official languages of Malta as well as official languages of the EU. Maltese resulted from the fusion of North African Arabic and a Sicilian dialect of Italian. It is the only Semitic language officially written in Latin script. English is a medium of instruction in schools. Italian was the language of church and government until 1934 and is still understood by a sizable portion of the population. Religion. Roman Catholicism is the official religion of Malta, but there is full freedom of religious belief. More than 9/10 of Maltese are Roman Catholic, however. Only about 3/5 of these practice their faith. The islands are an independent province of the Church with an archdiocese in Malta and a diocese in Gozo. Very small numbers of Maltese are adherents of other Christian denominations or of Islam. There are Roman Catholic cathedrals at Mdina and Valletta, an Anglican cathedral at Valletta, and a mosque at Cordino Heights. Economy of Malta. Until the mid-1960s, the Maltese economy depended heavily on the British military presence in Malta. In the 1950s, Britain began to withdraw its armed forces, which necessitated a drastic diversification of the economy. A series of development plans after 1959 were supported by government grants, loans, and other fiscal incentives to encourage private investment, import, and capital controls, which were extensive until the second half of the 1980s, were progressively dismantled during the 1990s, moving Malta toward a more market-driven economy as the Maltese government pursued a policy of gradual privatization beginning in 1999. Agriculture and fishing. Agricultural development is hampered by land fragmentation, shallow soils, and lack of adequate water supplies. Most farming is carried out on small terraced strips of land that preclude the introduction of large-scale mechanization. As a result of the growth of urbanization, the agricultural labor force has become increasingly older and more farming is done on a part-time basis. Nevertheless, production has risen gradually because of improved techniques in the cultivation of some crops, especially horticultural ones. The major crops are potatoes, tomatoes, and fruit. Fishing is seasonal and, to a large extent, undertaken on an artisanal basis. The common dolphin fish Coryphena hippurus and the bluefin tuna thunis, however, are caught for export. Aquaculture, introduced in Malta in the late 1980s, has surpassed fishing as a source of income. Labor and taxation. The majority of Malta's workforce is employed in the manufacturing and services sectors. Women make up about 1/3 of the workforce. The public sector is to a very large extent unionized. In the private sector, most large enterprises are unionized. Malta has two chief labor unions, the General Workers Union, Malta's largest union, and the Union of United Workers, as well as a confederation of smaller sectoral unions, each of which came into being around the mid-20th century. Transportation and telecommunications. The island of Malta's road system connects all towns and villages and includes a coast road and a panoramic road. Bus services radiating from Valletta provide inexpensive and frequent internal transportation. Taxis and rented vehicles are available on the island. Most families own automobiles, and the number of cars per household is one of the highest in Europe. There is no railway. Ferry services operate between Malta and Gozo, and Malta and Sicily are connected by both ferry and high-speed catamaran. Internet usage increased as well. The Malta Communications Authority, established in 2021, is the regulatory body of the telecommunications sector. Health and welfare. The government of Malta has always played a central role in the provision of health care by offering a comprehensive array of free health services and preventive care to Maltese citizens. State hospitals and clinics are complemented by private hospitals, which have proliferated since the 1990s. Since 1988, the island of Malta has been home to the United Nations International Institute on Aging (INI), which has made the island a center of geriatric care and research. Education. From the early 1970s until the mid-1980s, the government radically altered the education system, which was previously structured on British models and strongly influenced by the Roman Catholic Church. Compulsory education was extended to include all children ages 5 to 16. The streaming of students by age and intellectual ability and through examinations was at first discarded but later reintroduced. In 2025, Malta's government reformed the education system again and created autonomous regional colleges consisting of primary and secondary schools and junior colleges. Cultural life. The culture of Malta is reflected in a mixture of Arab and Italian traditions. The Maltese are highly literate and have a deep appreciation of the arts. The Italian painter Caravaggio and the Maltese poet Duncarme are considered major contributors to art and literature in Malta. Malta's cultural influences stem largely from the country's history of foreign domination and the influence of the Roman Catholic Church. Folk traditions have evolved mainly around the festa that celebrates the patron saint of a village, which is marked by processions and fireworks.